Welcome to another installment of Donning the Armor. This morning we will begin in Genesis chapter 18, verse 16. Then the men rose from there, looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him." And the Lord said, "Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grave, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I will know." So God already knows what's going on. But now he's putting the people of Sodom and Gomorrah to a test. God already knows the answer to these things. He already knows the wickedness that we've done. He knows the good we've done. He knows everything we will ever do, because God lives outside of time. It's something that we have a difficult time understanding and comprehending sometimes. But at this very moment, we only live in the present. Everything that happened before this exact moment is now just a memory of the past. But to God exists in the past, the present, and the future, all at the same time. You know, lots of times I myself has used it just because it's a way to visualize, but that God sits outside of time and he can see the entire course of our life laid out before him. But that's not really kind of what it is. It's more that God exists in all periods of time at the same time. And his consciousness connects through all of those moments. So he can seal us at our formation in the womb as his, because he is with us as well at the end and has seen that we trusted in him. So he can seal us as his elect because he sees us with him at the end. Now, he knows the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah. He knows there's been an outcry against it. People crying out for justice, crying out for mercy. But now he's going to test them. Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood still before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, "Would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for 50 righteous that were in it?" So Abraham's going to begin bargaining. Abraham's saying, look, there's a lot of people in that city. He helped save that city. And even he didn't want to deal with their king. He knew what was there. But he's saying there could be 50 righteous people in there. Are you really, in your perfect justice and perfect love, going to wipe out an entire city if there were 50 righteous people in it? Are you going to wipe them out as well? Far be it for you to do such a thing as this, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? So the Lord said, "If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sakes." So the Lord agrees, look, if there are righteous people in there, I won't destroy it. If there are 50 righteous, I won't destroy it. Because such is my love for man. And I'm not going to treat the righteous the same as the wicked. Then Abraham answered and said, "Indeed now, I who am but dust and ashes have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose there were 5 less than the 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for lack of 5? So Abraham is saying, look, Lord, I am not worthy to speak to you in this manner. But suppose there's 45 people. There's just 5 less than 50. Are you going to destroy it just because there was 5 fewer than 50? And he said, if I find there 45, I will not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, suppose there should be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for the sake of 40. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry, but I will speak. Suppose 30 should be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, indeed, now I have taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 should be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Then he said, let not the Lord be angry. I will speak once more. Suppose 10 should be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Now, sometimes people will ask, how is Abraham able to argue and haggle the Lord down? Well, he doesn't. The Lord knows how many righteous people are in that city. And he's trying to get Abraham to understand that the Lord's judgment is not coming for the righteous in this way because they aren't there. Now, we do know that trials, tribulations, it rains on the righteous same as the wicked. But this is a different kind of judgment. This is a judgment to destruction. This is a condemnation. And the Lord does not condemn the righteous with the wicked. That's a different thing. And the Lord knows how many are going to be found there. It's not a surprise. He already knows. So this is getting Abraham to understand. This condemnation is not coming from a place of impulse. It's not coming from a reaction. This needs to be carried out because this is the truth of the matter. And he's doing it with Abraham because Abraham is going to be the father of many nations. He is going to be the one leading God's people through this first phase. And then with each descendant will be a different phase of God's people. This is his first. This is the beginning. So he needs Abraham to understand that what he speaks is true. And his condemnation is coming because there is no righteous. Now moving on to chapter 19. Now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. So sitting at the gate of the city, we normally see governance as being done in town squares, in city halls, which tend to be towards the middle of a city. Well, in those ancient days, that business was done at the gate. It was done at the entrance. So Lot, sitting at the gate of the city, is now a well-respected member of Sodom. That's how deep he has fallen in. Remember, he originally went there to graze his herds. That was the land. But as time has gone by, he's more and more been pulled in to the sinfulness of the world, which is what Sodom represents. He continued to be pulled further and further in. And he said, "Hear now, my lords, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way." And they said, "No, but we will spend the night in the open square." They are going to test the people of Sodom. Lot knows what awaits them. He knows how wicked Sodom is. The angels do as well. But they're saying, no, we're going to go into the open square and we're going to spend our time there. But he strongly insisted, so they turned to him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Now, before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter surrounded the house. So he's saying, look, just come into my house, and then you can go out by the light of day. And they feast, they fellowship. Before they lay down to go to bed, though, the men of the city, both young and old, come out from everywhere from the city to surround the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them carnally. So, people like to chalk up the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah as their great sin was not being hospitable to the stranger. That verse is not speaking of hospitality. That verse is speaking of something very different. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, please, my brethren, do not do so wickedly. See now, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you, and you may do with them as you wish. Not only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof. So he understands what wickedness. We're told in Jude what wickedness. It's a perversion of Scripture that people now pretend. People who claim to teach the Bible, who claim to follow Christ, who claim to know Scripture, try to pervert so badly the Scripture by making it out to be something it wasn't. This had nothing to do with hospitality. The wickedness that was before Sodom was their sexual deviancy. They wanted to know these men carnally. They wanted to violate them as a group. Now, the reason why this is always so changed now is because there are so many Christians who see the cultural winds of the world, who see the degeneracy of all around them, and they want to affirm that sinfulness because they want to do as Lot did. They want to be as close to the world and be so ingrained in the world while trying to keep themselves separate as they can get. But we are told to be separate from the world. And Lot right now is seeing his mistake. He is as righteous a man as you're going to find in Sodom. And now he's starting to see, I have fallen so deep in, I don't know how to get back out. I have so entered this sinful place that I don't have a way out right now. We can't allow ourselves to be so compromised with the world that we can't tell the wickedness from the right. We need to be set apart. Now, people will, especially unbelievers, naysayers, will look at this verse 8. I have 2 daughters that have not known a man. Please do with them as you wish. Now, I don't know. Maybe Lot sees this as his only way out, and he is truly offering them up. I've also seen it commentated that this is him calling their bluff. He knows they're not going to do it. He's not exactly pushing his daughters out the door. He's just saying, I have these 2 daughters. Because he knows these men are so wicked and so carnal and so deviant that that's not going to satiate them. They want no part of that. They want something very different. And they said, stand back. Then they said, this one came to stay here and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So they're pointing out, look, you just came to stay here and feed your flocks. Now you're acting as our moral judge, as the judge of how we should operate. As the only righteous one in town, you're trying to act as better than us. We're going to deal with you worse than we're going to deal with them. Because a sinner hates no one more than the person who points out their sin. They hate no one more. Because they don't see pointing out sin as a kindness, as a love, as a way to help them get right with their Creator and their Savior. They see it as a condemnation, no matter how non-condemning we are. So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. So they blind them. They save Lot. They blind the people so that they cannot get in. They blind them and cut off their wickedness, small and great, young and old. Then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city? Take them out of this place, for we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So they're even saying, hey, if you have anybody else in the city, go get them and bring them out. Bring them out, and we will grant them salvation from this condemnation that is to come. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who had married his daughters and said, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and sent him outside the city. So even then, even knowing the destruction was coming, Lot still struggled to be brought out from his sinfulness. So it came to pass when they brought them outside that he said, escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. Then Lot said to them, please no, my lords, indeed now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. See now, the city is clear enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. They're saving his life. Flee to the mountains. Flee to safety. And he's still saying, I cannot separate myself from the world that much. Please let me go into this smaller city. Please let me remain a little in the world. And he said to him, see, I have favored you concerning this thing also, in that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there. So God, continuing to be gracious, is saying, okay, fine, go there. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. Go there, continue on. Get away from this wicked place which is to be condemned. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So he overthrew those cities, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. You know, I've heard that during excavations of the area, they have actually found glass in the sand. Which glass, of course, is caused from great high temperature fire hitting sand. almost as if brimstone and fire had rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, I once my daughter was talking to me and I was telling her this story. We were going through this account and she said that the Lord had lied. She was little. She said the Lord had lied to Abraham. He said he wouldn't destroy it if there were 10 righteous people, but he did destroy it. I said, no, hon, you're misunderstanding. There weren't 10 righteous people. There was Lot, Lot's wife, and his 2 daughters. That's 4 people. And they weren't even the most righteous people. That's 4. He had other daughters. He had sons. He had sons-in-law. All of them refused to leave the sinfulness of Sodom behind. Maybe if they had all gone together, maybe if they had all decided, there would have been 10 people. But there weren't 10. The Lord knew that there wouldn't be 10. The Lord knew he'd have to struggle even getting Lot out. And Lot and his wife and his daughters, not exactly even the most righteous of people. There weren't even 10. That's how wicked Sodom and Gomorrah were. But then we get to verse 26 as well. But his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. She could not help herself from looking back at the past, to looking back at what she was saved from. And you got to understand, he said his 2 daughters had not known a man, which means when he's talking to his sons-in-laws, he's not talking to the sons-in-laws of those daughters. They left behind daughters. And his wife is looking back for what she had just lost. You feel for her. But when God has called you out, when God is saying you now have a new lease, go forth in my way, you cannot focus on what you left behind, on who you were. You need to trust in his sanctification, in his justification, and you need to move forward. Because what is behind you was death, was the wages of sin, which is death. His wife could not keep her eyes forward. She could not stop herself from looking behind. And she paid the wages of those sins, so to speak. And Abraham went out early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. Then he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. God acted for Lot because of Abraham. Because he promised to save the righteous. Even like it said, Noah was only righteous in his own generation. There is no righteous but God. But we can be good people. Doesn't lead to salvation, but it can lead to the Lord reaching out. Because he's reaching out to all of us. And it's been said, and it's probably true, that all of us who are saved are the answer to the prayer of someone else. Someone else has been praying, Lord, help soften the heart of that person. Help them see the glory that is in you. The glory that comes from being one of your children. And then we opened our eyes one day and we heard the knocking of the Lord and said, hey, I know what that is. I want to have that too. will do to Abraham. Abraham, for all we know, was praying all night. Let my nephew be among the righteous. And God acted and brought Lot out. But as we see, that's the highlight of Lot's life, because it only goes downhill from there. And we'll come to say at this point here, as we get to verse 30, there's lots of naysayers who will say, because Christians oftentimes will decry the degeneracy of the world around us, of the deviancy around us, and the things that they try to teach children nowadays. And they'll point out things like what's to come. And you read your children the Bible and look at what this has in it. We skip over certain things because the Bible is not a children's book. The Bible's not meant for kids. It's meant for us. Those of us who want to dwell in the Word, who want to live by the Word, who want to be one with Christ and God and be His. It's not a children's book. There's a lot of things that happen in this that we should be careful about reading to children, and maybe sterilize it a little bit for them as they're young, because it is not a book meant for kids. It is a book meant for followers. So with that, verse 30, then Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains. So he ended up going to the mountains anyway. And his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. Now, there could be many reasons. We're not given a reason for why he's afraid to dwell in Zoar, but it might be because he is the only survivor, and they might want to know why. Maybe he's afraid that the sinfulness of Zoar will cause this to happen again. So maybe he realized, hey, the angels were speaking right. Maybe I should just go straight up into the mountains. But they still weren't righteous in this. And he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. Now the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come in to us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Now there were other people. They were just in a city. This is once again people trying to do things in their own way and doing the most degenerate and sinful things based on believing they know what is best and that they know how to do, how to survive, how to provide. And when we think we can provide for ourselves, we do abominable things. And that is straight what this is, an absolute abomination. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. And it happened on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, indeed, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight, and you may go in and lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Then they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son and named his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. Born from sinfulness, born of abomination, their descendants go on to be longtime enemies that sit in anonymity, or not anonymity, they sit with great hatred and great animosity between them and the children of Israel. Born out of wickedness, born out of sinfulness, born out of what you could call the work of man. not trusting in the Lord, saved purely for the benefit of Abraham. There were none righteous in Sodom. There were 4 saved. The first died turning back, desiring to be where the sinfulness was, to be back there. The father, Lot, falling to drink. Just as Noah had done. And the daughters falling into the wickedness and sin. Of abominable sexual deviancy, which had been the end of Sodom and Gomorrah. So there weren't even 4. 4 were brought out, but even they weren't righteous. That's how wicked that place was. And that's the dangers of trying to live too inside the world when we are called to live outside of it. So, another installment of Donning the Armor. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again for the next installment. But until then, be blessed.